A lawmaker who represents much of Columbus was taken into custody on Thursday. Coming up, the point Congresswoman Joyce Beatty says she wanted to make about your vote. Mom and Dad, check your bank account. Child tax credit payments are being deposited. But there's a possibility you'll want to opt out. And today would have been John Glenn's 100th birthday. We'll look back at the life and legacy of an astronaut, a senator, and American hero. Face the State begins now. Ohio's 3rd District Congresswoman Joyce Beatty was arrested. She was placed in plastic handcuffs on Thursday afternoon during a demonstration in Washington, D.C. We thank you for joining us on this Sunday for Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. Nationwide, there are conversations about voting rights and voting security. And the Congresswoman, who also chairs the Congressional Black Caucus, was arrested in a national voting rights march.
Keep your eyes on the prize.
Dozens of people got together to protest voting restrictions passed in states across the country. They ended up going to the Hart Senate office building to pressure Republicans, and then this happened. Capitol Police arrested the Congresswoman. You can see her here with zip ties around her wrists. Representative Beatty was one of 9 people taken into custody. A short time later, this picture was posted to her Twitter account saying, "Let the people vote. Fight for justice." Congresswoman Beatty's office shared this message after her arrest. She said, quote, "I stand in solidarity with Black women and allies across the country in defense of our constitutional right to vote. We have come too far and fought too hard to see everything systematically dismantled and restricted by those who wish to silence us. Be assured that this is just the beginning. This is our power, our message." Representative Beatty wants the Senate to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. That's federal legislation that would curtail restrictions being set on voting and gerrymandering at the state level. Some of the most restrictive voting laws in our nation are in Texas, and there are proposals to make the laws there even stricter, which is why some lawmakers actually left the Lone Star State and traveled to Washington, D.C. in protest. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, said, like Congresswoman Beatty, they'd be arrested when they return home. And they did not get a warm welcome from the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell.
So this week, state legislators from Texas decided to grab some beer, hop on a private plane, and flee the state in what they are pretending is some great moral crusade. In reality, they've just come here to Washington to snap selfies, bask in the limelight, and beg Senate Democrats to take over Texas elections.
What does the president think of this move?
I think that the president's view is that these Texas legislators were making a statement through action in opposition to efforts in their state to oppose restrictions on people's fundamental rights and their rights to vote in their state.
We wanted to take a closer look at what that legislation would do. Our sister station in Houston, Texas, connects the dots.
Texas House Democrats ran to Washington, D.C. to prevent new voting restrictions from being passed. So what is on the table in Texas? Let's connect the dots. There are actually 2 bills in Texas that would change some of the voting rules in the Lone Star State, Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 3. While the state Senate still has enough people to get work done, without the lower chamber there to sign off on legislation, it can't go anywhere for now. So what's in Senate Bill 1? It includes a ban on drive-through voting, unless the voter has a disability and needs to do curbside voting. Also, a ban on overnight voting. It would require polls to be only open for 9 hours between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. Plus, if you drive 3 or more people to the polls who are not family members, you would have to fill out a form with all of your identifiable information. House Bill 3, that was stalled by the Democratic walkout, has a lot of the same provisions as the Senate bill. It would make it a state felony for local election officials to send unsolicited applications for mail-in ballots to voters. It also alters ID requirements for mail-in ballots. All of these changes were enough to drive Democrats out of Texas, but even that drastic move may not be enough to stop them.
Now, Ohio's Secretary of State says the Buckeye State is a safe and secure place to cast your ballot. But for that to happen, the state has to enforce election security requirements. Secretary of State Frank LaRose announced this week that his office has referred 117 non-citizens to the Ohio Attorney General. For some context, there are nearly 8 million registered voters in our state. LaRose says these 117 potentially violated election rules in 2020. The state's elections chief also talked about security in the race to replace Congressman Steve Stivers. That's District 15, which we've outlined here for you on this map. LaRose took us for a tour of one of the state's busiest voting locations this week.
Well, I've got my future voter with me. This is my daughter, Ellie. And she said, "Can I come with you?" And how could I say no?
The secretary, along with his daughter, teamed up with staff to show how voting machines are prepared. This was at the Franklin County Board of Elections on Wednesday.
Unfortunately, there's all kinds of mythology out there about elections. People make up all kinds of conspiracy theories and they tend to run rampant. But the good news is that when Ohioans actually look at the process, they realize it's a trustworthy one.
You can find all of the voting information you need at 10tv.com. Now, the House GOP leader met with former President Donald Trump this week. This is really a pivotal moment for the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy is considering who in Congress should investigate the deadly January 6th insurrection. You'll remember, President Trump was impeached for, but not convicted of, inciting the insurrection. During that time, there was a run-in between Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and fellow Republican Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney. This is according to a new book called I Alone Can Fix It. Cheney says in a phone call, she told Jordan, quote, "You expletive did this," end quote, and slapped his hand away when he tried to get her to safety. We did reach out to Congressman Jordan for comment. We have yet to hear back. He helped get them to the table, but will he finally get the vote? Ohio Senator Rob Portman helped lead negotiations on a bipartisan infrastructure bill. And this past week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced that the Senate will have its first vote on legislation. That vote is set to happen next Wednesday. Lawmakers will be working on finalizing the text.
We want to move as quickly as possible, and we think there's an opening now to get it done, but we're not going to shortchange the process because it's important to get it right. This is an historic commitment in our nation's infrastructure. Unprecedented amount of money, among other things, and new policies, including a broadband network that we've never had before that'll change the digital infrastructure in this country. A lot of really important things in this bill, but it's got to be done right. And it's got to be done in a way that garners enough bipartisan support to get it done. So we're moving as quickly as we can.
Senator Portman says they're working through the weekend on every last detail. Racial bias has found a place in home values in Franklin County. That's according to a report just released out of a partnership between Franklin County Auditor Michael Stinziano and the Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity. The report calls out that houses and neighborhoods from parts of Linden and the Hilltop were assessed at more than their sales values in at least 9 years between 2010 and 2019. During that same time span, houses in wealthier and majority white neighborhoods of Worthington and Grandview Heights were undervalued. Franklin County Auditor Michael Stinziano told me that ensuring equity for the entire community is a priority.
I know that you're really plugged in, so I know you've seen some of the pushback on issues like critical race theory and really people not wanting to talk about systemic racism. But we have read and we know that redlining is one example of that. How do you anticipate this report is going to be received?
So in This report is part of a multi-year process. It started when we came in office and working with the performance audit. What we'll hear from appraisers are, well, the numbers are the numbers. We don't look at race, but when you dig down, and I think the Corwin report does a wonderful job of showing just how historically it has built up over time and played a role in how the valuations were established, you can't deny those facts. And we're also very committed in working with our third-party appraiser to make sure that we have a multi-review, not just one individual who may have implicit bias unknown to them, but really make sure that we are finding that right balance for those valuations.
The report concludes that racial disparities between black and white neighborhoods have grown since 2010, and that black homeowners are underrepresented in making Board of Revision claims that could lower their taxes. Recommendations include implementing measures to eliminate bias, removing subjective variables in the data gathering process, and increasing outreach in higher income black majority neighborhoods to encourage more Board of Revision filings. COVID-19 cases are back on the upswing. Coming up, what the data tells us about that Delta variant in our state. And show me the money. Cash from the child tax credit is arriving in bank accounts. We'll make sure you are up to speed on how this works. And later, 100 years of John Glenn. A look back at this hometown hero's life.
You've probably heard members of Congress describe their medical insurance as the standard to beat, like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in this tweet with 615,000 likes. In turn, there are others who take it to mean Congress gets free health care. So why are we talking about this? Verify viewer Keith wants to know, do members of Congress really get free medical care for life? Our sources are North Carolina Representative Virginia Fox, the Congressional Institute, and the Congressional Research Service. This rumor of free health care started circulating around the time the Affordable Care Act was passed. In fact, the 2010 law actually required members of Congress to use the D.C. health care exchange to get insurance if they want it, as Representative Fox points out on her website, explaining members of Congress are responsible for part of the premium just like everyone else. The Congressional Institute says members must also pay a small annual fee to access the attending physician of the U.S. Congress. They have on-site medical staff for non-emergency care, like vaccine distribution. While in office, representatives and senators also contribute to Medicare, much like any other job. But otherwise, the Congressional Research Service says there are no other insurance retirement benefits. So we can verify it's false that members of Congress get free medical care for life or even while serving in Congress. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
Is there something we can verify for you? Go to facebook.com/WBNS10TV, tweet us at 10TV, or email us at verify@10tv.com. You can also see local verifies at 10tv.com/verify. As of late last week, COVID-19 was on the rise in our state. Doctors say the key to fighting it off is vaccination. At the same time, new legislation in Ohio takes aim at vaccine requirements. 10 TV's Angela Reigert explains.
The Delta variant is, in fact, rapidly increasing and is on a trajectory to become the dominant strain in Ohio.
On the same day, Ohio health leaders warned of the risks of the Delta variant and urged vaccinations.
When there are more people who are vaccinated, there are fewer people who can carry this virus.
Governor Mike DeWine signed a bill banning public schools and universities from requiring vaccines not granted full approval by the FDA. It specifically targets the COVID-19 vaccines, which have emergency use authorization. Dr. Andrew Thomas is the chief clinical officer at OSU Wexner Medical Center.
In a way, vaccine providers or employers or schools would not be able to mandate the use of that vaccine under the federal rules for the EUA status. So in a way, I think once that EUA status goes away, from my understanding of the legislation, those restrictions on mandating the vaccine would also go away.
Right now, about 45% of the state is fully vaccinated. As for the Delta variant, we know between May 23rd and June 5th, Ohio health officials detected it in nearly 2% of the samples they tested. Between June 6th and 19th, that number jumped to 15%. We're told it's likely to double in the next round of results.
We now have two Ohio's. An Ohio that is vaccinated and protected on the one hand, and an Ohio that is unvaccinated and vulnerable to Delta on the other.
The fear is the variant will keep spreading if more people don't roll up their sleeves. Now the focus turns to the fall with students back to school.
I think the Ohio Department of Health is working with the Ohio Department of Education to put out some guidance related to that. I'm not able to speak about that today, but I do think it will probably relate to those that are under age 12 needing to be masked to some degree when they're around other people.
Reporting in Columbus, Angela Reigard, 10 TV News.
More than 1 million families in Ohio started getting monthly checks this week as part of President Joe Biden's child tax credit. But who qualifies for the money? What do you have to do to get it? And where is it coming from? 10 TV's Gabriela Garcia has the answers.
The child tax credit are monthly payments that are essentially an advance on tax credits that would normally be claimed at the end of the tax year. Now, this means these upcoming monthly payments will replace the annual credit that would otherwise be claimed at the start of 2022 next year.
The credit is $3,600 annually for children under age 6 and $3,000 for children ages 6 to 17. But 6 months of payments will be advanced monthly through the end of this year. That means eligible families will get $300 a month for each child under 6 and $250 for each child older than that. But unlike economic impact payments, any payments in excess of what a family is eligible for might have to be repaid.
Those payments are based on either your 2019 or your 2020 tax return, but your eligibility for the credit is based on 2021. So for instance, if you're not eligible for the full credit, but they pay you the full credit amount, when you do your tax return next year, you'll do a reconciliation and you'll have to pay some of it back.
If you filed taxes and the IRS already has your bank account information, the payments should be deposited directly into your account on the 15th of every month, starting today.
Parents don't have to get the child tax credit if they don't want it. It's too late to opt out of this month's payment, but you can opt out for the rest of the year on the IRS's website. In Columbus, Gabriela Garcia, 10 TV News.
The expanded child tax credit is currently only for 2021. The Biden administration is looking to extend it for years to come. You can get more information about this by texting the word credit to 614-460-3345. City of Columbus is back open for business. That's according to city leaders in an announcement this past week. Their goal is to welcome both employees and visitors back to the capital city. The announcement took place during food court. That's every Thursday at the John F. Wolfe Columbus Commons from 11 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon.
We are really focused now on doing our work to bring people back downtown and making sure that they feel safe and excited about returning to downtown.
The man in charge of Columbus's police and fire is stepping down. Ned Pettis Jr. has served the city for 40 years. He's going to be retiring as the city's public safety director. Pettis spent 35 years with the Columbus Division of Fire. He rose through the ranks and became the city's first African-American fire chief in 2002. On August 1st, 2016, Mayor Andrew Ginther appointed Pettis to his current position. Mayor Ginther says he's grateful for Pettis's leadership and decades of dedication. The city of Columbus approved nearly $300,000 on bulletproof vests and helmets, not for police, but for the fire department. The fire department says it was going to use that money to buy nearly 200 vests and nearly 200 helmets. 10 TV's Kevin Landers explains why the job of firefighter is becoming more dangerous.
Additional units to the area of 19th and College. We have several pedestrians struck by a vehicle.
Firefighters don't always fight fires. Sometimes, like in the case in 2016 on the campus of Ohio State, they were called to care for students who had been run over by a car by an alleged terrorist who later slashed students with a butcher knife.
All patients are alert and oriented, but severe bleeding out of some of them.
Bulletproof vests and helmets may seem like a strange thing for a fire department to purchase, but when you consider the number of mass shootings and other violent acts, the fire department says they're becoming more and more necessary. For example, after the 2017 mass shooting in Las Vegas, Columbus Fire began purchasing bulletproof helmets. Mass shootings like the one at the old Al Rosa Villa in Columbus in 2004, or the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando in 2016, or the Chardon High School shooting in 2012, has forced fire departments to ask for more protection.
If they want to finish the job that they started, you know, it's not unusual to hear about these people pulling guns out and then shooting not only the person that they did before, but the rescuers. So for that reason, we've had vests.
For decades, Columbus Fire has equipped its medic trucks with vests and helmets, but not for those who ride the fire engines. Asking the city to protect them, the department says, is critical to provide the quickest help to victims in cases of domestic violence or other criminal acts.
I would liken it to, we have a house on fire and half of our firefighters don't have gear. They're not going to go inside a burning building.
Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
We checked to see if other fire departments have bulletproof vests and helmets. Whitehall purchased fitted vests for all of its personnel. All of Whitehall's trucks have ballistic helmets. Newark and Jefferson Township Fire in Blacklick also have helmets. There was simply no one like John Glenn. Coming up, some of the commemorations planned on his 100th birthday. But first, there's a competition for just about everything, including the country's best parks. Coming up, the accolades for Ohio's scenic stops.
Misleading posts shared thousands of times claim, quote, Japan has banned all BLM apparel from the Olympics. No one can kneel/raise fists during the anthems, end quote. But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources include the International Olympic Committee and the Olympic World Library. The Olympics are governed by the IOC and the Olympic Charter. It's a set of rules that everyone agrees to follow within the Olympic venue. Rule 50 of that charter states that no political, religious, or racial demonstrations or propaganda are permitted. So we can verify, no, Japan did not ban Black Lives Matter apparel and kneeling during anthems. It's the IOC that sets those rules. But the IOC did update their guidelines to allow athletes to express themselves on the field prior to the start of competition for the Tokyo Olympics. With your Fast Facts, I'm Ariane Till.
There's archery, there's hiking and camping in general. It opens up like a whole new world.
To really just play.
Visitors have already told us that Ohio state parks are among the best nationwide. But the state is looking to make sure the rest of the country realizes that too. The organization was named a 2021 National Gold Medal Award finalist. The winners will be announced in September. This weekend, Ohioans are celebrating an American hero. History-making astronaut John Glenn would have turned 100 today. His birthplace of Cambridge and his childhood hometown of New Concord are joining forces to commemorate the occasion with a 3-day festival. Several events took place for the John Glenn Centennial celebration. There's an event scheduled on each city's website. Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth. He served in the U.S. Senate for 24 years, then at age 77 became the oldest person to go into space. John Glenn died in 2016 at the age of 95. Thank you all for joining us here today. We will see you next week for Face the State. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 4:25 for Wake Up CBUS. Have a great Sunday.